I am running a much more efficient, much more profitable business on much less time because of implementing a lot of the wellness stuff that I learned, which again, meditation, yoga, exercise, connection. Yes.
My morning routines are, whereas before, if there was a deal to be done, I'm there. If there's money to be made, I'm there. Now my routine is different. I wake up, I'm going to spend the first 10 minutes, 20 minutes sitting down, meditating on the balcony in the heat and just being present with myself. After that, I'm going for a swim, and then I'm coming back. I'm having a shower. I'm getting my clothes on. I'm not going straight to the office.
And it's about simplicity, which I find really interesting. Yeah. Yes. So we're kind of, we're hitting the same journey through different routes.
So welcome everybody to another episode of the J2 Hub podcast. Now, look, most of you have seen a lot of the podcasts in the studio recently, but I thought I have to bring the virtual podcasts back because we have to make sure that we can connect with some of our guests that are back home in the UK or various people around the world. Now, today's particular guest, I spoke to her, I think almost 4 years ago on the podcast when the podcast was very, very new. And she was kind enough to come on and share some expert advice. And I'm so glad to have her back on again 4 years later, because every time we speak for hours, and sometimes we forget to press record on the podcast and we miss really juicy parts. So today I've got Susannah Cole, who you've seen on the podcast before from the Good Property Company. Susannah, thank you so much. You're our first virtual guest on the podcast.
That's so nice of you, because we were trying to meet. You're in Dubai. I normally live in the UK and in Spain, half and half, but I was spending 3 months in America. So we're always on different continents. So thank you for doing online. However, I'd love to jump over sometime and come and meet you over there. See you.
No, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So this is now the DXB edition because I'm now based in Dubai. But oddly enough, a lot of the topics are still talking about the UK. So I'm going to go straight in there. As recently, if you saw, a lot of people have seen my post and, automatically they think that I hate the UK. I don't hate the UK. I just hate what's going on. And if you saw some of the comments that I've had on some of these posts, I've never experienced so much racism in my life until I got onto Instagram. I'll tell you some of the comments. It's like, I've had things like where people have said, why don't you go back to Pakistan, you Pakistani? And my reply to that is because I'm not Pakistani and I've never been to Pakistan. Or it's because of people like you that this country is screwed. And I'm thinking, what does that mean? People like me who have built real estate portfolios, paid masses.
Heavens, how many people do you house? How many people do you have? Okay. I think my response would be up your bum.
So it's quite fun because the thing is, one of these posts got 1,200 comments and I thought, I can't reply to this. And it's kind of like toilet humor. I sit there sometimes and I'm thinking, okay, when I'm having an odd day, I think, right, I'm going to reply to some of these keyboard warriors. But it was the first time in my life where I actually felt uncomfortable, where I thought, I was born and bred in the UK. If you didn't see my face, if you didn't see the color of my skin, there's no way you could tell I was Indian, right?
Who was our last Prime Minister? Thank you. Who was the last Scottish leader? Thank you. Come on, people, grow up.
Yeah. So it's been quite, I wouldn't say it's been hurtful. It's been quite comical, but there have been times where I've thought to myself, this is my country. How can you say this is not my country? Okay, granted, I'm not English by whatever, but I'm born and bred. I'm just as English as anybody else in that country. Just because I got the wrong skin color, these guys are having a dig. So for me at that point, I thought, okay, maybe you did get out of the UK at the right time when things were going a little bit shit. But I think it's a great time to kind of get a point of view from somebody who's doing so well in the UK. Obviously, you've been there a long time. Yeah. You've had your own issues to deal with. But tell me, what is going on at the moment? Like, let's get a real insight from like boots on the ground here, somebody who's seeing it day in, day out. Although you're always traveling anyway, so I guess you're not seeing a lot of it.
Well, you've moved family, which I was so... James and I go way back, so it's so glorious. And he was quite right. Like, he was like, Suze, we need to press the record button. All the good bits will be like before we even start recording. So it was just so glorious to hear about the family move. Whereas I live half in the UK, half in Spain, and then I do a lot of traveling. Like I've just done 3 months in Brooklyn. So I was funk, soul, hip hop, R&B, and reggae all summer. I did, as a 53-year-old white woman with a nice silk top and a nice pair of linen trousers, go to, is it Pharaoh Munch? And he was going, slash, burn, destroy, kill. And I'm like, oh, Pharaoh, that's not terribly nice. But I went to all the greats this summer, American music. But what's going on in the UK? Well, are we doing political? Are we doing property? Where would you want to jump in at?
I think let's start with political and go to property because the focus is real estate.
Well, what's happening, of course, is we're getting people divided, aren't we? It's a black and white. I don't mean black and white in terms of skin color, although I would be freckles rather than white. But it's a black and white. You're wrong, I'm right. We're divided. Nobody's being mature and grown up. We're seeing this. It's the strongman politics right throughout the world now, isn't it? And unfortunately, what we're seeing is people going back to, I refuse to listen to you, I'm going to other you. And once I other you and I stop naming your name, so your name is James, I can't be rude to somebody when I call them James, because it's a human, then I can look at you as the other. And so we're seeing that, and then which is tragic. And that is what led to World War II. So, guys, let's be quite serious about this. So strongman politics is happening. The other thing, the broader world economy thing that's happening is obviously China, India, Brazil. The BRICS countries are coming up and the Western world is going down. Now, I love Egyptian and Roman history, particularly Roman history. I just get a thrill when I go to a location, obviously in Europe, and you think people were here 2,000 years ago. Those earrings, being a woman, those earrings are 2,000 years old. Oh, honey, those amulets. And civilizations rise and fall, and they rise and fall surprisingly quickly. And so our Western civilization, if you just look at the maths, because we got globalization, because we were importing from China, and now China has moved up the value chain from kind of manufacturing into software tech and all the rest of it, the economy is changing. I did a lovely travel around India in 2018, 1,000-mile drive. It was amazing. Spent weeks there. And every 5 kilometers, there was a 2,000-person strong IT college. Well, don't tell me that's not going to change the economy of the world if you're pumping out 2,000 kids every 5 kilometers throughout my 1,000-mile drive in India. So what's happening, and we cannot stop that, is the global tectonic forces are that the Western civilization is reducing and the Indian, Chinese, civilizations are increasing. And you can see that. China, I went to Cambodia, Vietnam, and Laos. I actually caught early adopter. I got caught COVID about 6 months before it was declared in Laos. Honey, why not be first? But you saw all of the Chinese coming in and building the roads in Laos. You see it in Africa. They're buying up all the mineral rights and all the land. And the deals are, we'll build your road, and we have an amazing Chinese engineering, but we're then going to take the commercial value of the land 2 kilometers on either side. So basically, they're building their future infrastructure plus commerce. Can we change that? Probably not. Do we need to trade within that? Yes. But what I think is happening is, instead of people kind of thinking, well, this is what's happening, let's do what we can, people are then almost falling upon each other within a country rather than saying, these are global tectonic plate shifts. This is a civilization handover at some point.
Do you feel, look, I've been saying it for a long time. I feel the Middle East is going to be a big powerhouse. It's already a big powerhouse, but I look at statistics. I love looking at data because data never lies. And, I think this might have been your lie. Data never lies, but Dave down the pub does. When we spoke.
Pub talk, yes.
So I love looking at the data. When you look at the data and you think, there's so many wealthy millionaires leaving and coming to, I think last year was 4,000 something left the UK. And this year they're saying we're already at 9,700 multimillionaires have left the UK for other parts of the world, and the Middle East being the one. So Do you feel the Middle East is going to be some kind of powerhouse in the near future where a lot of the things are going to reside around it, or decisions are going to be made from here?
I think you are definitely a better place than me to judge that, being you're situated there. I was just spent some time with a very dear friend of mine, Sunny, who's got a very significant online sports business. And he went to the Olympics in 2016 and I went and supported him. And we were with Callum Crispy, his friend. So Sunny's just moved to Dubai. Callum lives in Bali. And obviously I live in two places in Europe and we met up in America. Go figure. And had an amazing time together. And what Crispy was talking about was he's never met so many entrepreneurs in Bali and Dubai. And so I think there's two things there. There's the kind of intellectual or intelligent or dynamic or entrepreneurial currency. And it's incredibly attractive for an entrepreneur to want to be around other entrepreneurs. It's my number one goal in 2025. I want to be around more entrepreneurs. And so it's very attractive to think, why don't I just physically move myself to where the mindset is really strong? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then my one question back to you is, I never like anyone to have eggs in one basket necessarily. The Middle East is primarily based on oil, is it not? And we are looking at how do we globally come out of that economy and move into different powers. So that interests me. What would the Middle East do post oil?
See, this is the thing. That's such a common misconception that it is oil. And when I looked at the last trade journals and what it was, the oil part of it is very, very small.
Right.
You know, the real estate part is huge. The tourism part is huge. And one thing I love about what Dubai does is when something gets a little bit boring, let's say now we've got the Burj Khalifa, millions of people come and see this tourist spot. Yes. Now, they know at some point that's going to have a shelf life, so they're already working on a tower that's 1.3 kilometers tall, building the Museum of the Future, and so many fantastic things are going on here. And what really surprises me is here, when a decision's made, things are acted so quickly. I mean, they said they were going to connect people with the metro, right? Yeah. I've been here 2.5 years now. When I came, they started building it, and I can't believe how quick this thing has gone up. Like it's almost ready for the train to go onto it. And I'm thinking, if this was the UK, we want to extend the M25 by 2 lanes and we're waiting 10 years for, to get through this legislation, this bit of paperwork. Why are people not learning from this country in the way it's moving?
And I would also say that energy was previously in New York. You know, one of the things, my sister's lived there for 25 years and I just, she and I swapped houses this summer. So her husband and her, my brother-in-law, who I love dearly, the pair of them, funnily enough, they chose to swap my house in Barcelona, not Bristol. Weird that. I don't know why, but I went into their brownstone in Brooklyn. And obviously, so I've been visiting New York for a long time. I go for Thanksgiving every year. And New York energy was like that. You know, you pull a building down for whatever reason, you turn it around, you put another building back up. There's no waiting, no messing. Let's do it. So I think one of the most attractive things about the Middle East, about where you are, is that entrepreneurial mindset of let's do it. And that is attractive to be around. Or almost kind of more than the tax breaks. That's attractive to be around, isn't it? Because you get stuff done.
Yeah. And, it's really, for me, it's really nice to see, like, hitting on that point of entrepreneurs. It's so easy to connect with people here. Now, me being quite a sociable person, I wanted to speak. I've wanted to speak to certain people, right? And a quick DM on Instagram or LinkedIn, a couple of days later, I'm having a coffee with these people. And I'm thinking, and when you're sitting with these guys, they're quite receptive to giving you advice and helping you. Because their whole thinking is that, look, no matter what kind of step you're on, if you think you're doing well here in Dubai, you can land in Dubai as a multi-millionaire and then suddenly you're going to feel very, very poor because you see the bar is set so high. So here, if there's targets that you're trying to achieve, there are some mad targets that people got. And, I'm looking at a collection of number plates on this guy's car outside his $160 million Vinna. His number plates are like 10 million, 10 million, 5 million, and you're thinking, okay, this is another level. But for me, seeing that, I'm thinking,
inspiring.
Obviously, absolutely. What has he done to get that? And what do I need to do to be in his shoes?
And probably if he's done it, you can do it. Because if another human being has done something, then it's highly likely that following the same steps, developing the same networks, etc., it's a real possibility. Because that is the other thing generally, not necessarily just to the Middle East, is how quickly wealth can be created. So, for example, I like to fly the fancy flights these days. And what I find really interesting is what I would call old money. So I obviously flew very nice flights back from New York to England. And what I found really interesting is what you and I would term old money, so aristocratic money, was not represented in the lounge that I was sitting in terms of dress. I think there was one couple out of all the people. And I thought, gosh, that's interesting. 10 years ago, we'd have seen more of the pink chinos and the red corduroys and the loafers and interesting. It's very much modern money is flying these flights these days. It really told me something. Those micro indicators. Who's in the business lounge? Who's in the first class lounge? And the other thing I really liked having a little bit of experience is I recently, as you know, had some glitches. Should we call them? And so obviously, a bit like you like, well, who's the best? So I went to the best hospital in the UK, and an awful lot of families come in from the Middle East to get treated there because it's the best. It's the 11th best hospital in the world. Sure. And I really found it interesting to see the family dynamics around people from Dubai, from Kuwait. People are never on their own. So if ever there was a patient, there would always be at least one other person, usually 2, often 3, maybe even 5 or 6 around that person. I quite like that. But yeah, what's happening in the UK? We've got the strongman stuff, or we did. We've got the black and white stuff where people are falling out with each other for political reasons, and we don't have that sense of community. The middle part is being hollowed out. That sense of community still exists significantly. I mean, I adore where I live. I adore my neighbours. We help each other out enormously. But it's getting to a finger-pointing blame situation rather than that great... one of the things that the British culture was previously very good at, in the face of adversity, we jump in together. If I go back to World War II, people really played their part. And we're very good in Britain at, if there's a problem, previously our culture would be, we pull together. And that's not happening now. And I think it's kind of the entitlement mentality, the blame mentality, the horrible racism that still exists. And guys, our empire has gone, right?
Yeah.
So we need to prove ourselves in a different way. Why don't we pull together? Why don't we bring together all the people in our country and work together? So yeah, I don't like some of the dynamics here. So for example, I don't employ people from the UK anymore.
You don't have anybody in your place from the UK now?
No, I even sold my office.
That was a really nice office.
Gorgeous office, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Funky office. No need for it. So I have a digitally placed and internationally placed team now. And
wow.
And I have to tell you, and maybe I'll get stalkers on Instagram now giving me jip. The main reason was I found the work ethic not acceptable.
Yeah. I agree with you. I mean, look, for people watching this podcast, my podcast has been going for a while now, and it's fully managed by 2 VAs in the Philippines through a Slack channel. And all I have to do is turn up and record, and even that, sometimes I screw up. Or when my other job is, when I'm in a physical studio, my other job is just to remove the cards from the camera and just upload the files into a drive. And even that's too much now because they've made it so damn easy for me. But like you say, I mean, people look at the podcast and go, James, how do you do all that? And it's like, I do it through strategic planning and working with people that are hungry.
And here is my Slack channel. And my marvelous VA, IN, contacted yours and set it up. And IN and I were WhatsApp messaging each other this morning. And I have a significant number of people within the Philippines who are very good, who have been tried and tested. I do work with other agencies. So I work with agencies in the UK, but they're on a project by project basis, and so they are self-managing and they need to be A-listers. Yeah,
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
So there's
It just goes to show, isn't it, how the whole workspace is changing. I mean, look, during COVID, we all started working from home.
Yeah.
Because I remember when I came, first time we met, you had this fantastic office, you had this really big team.
Yeah.
And it was a gorgeous office. It was a really nice do.
Yeah.
You know? And you now, and from somebody looking in from the outside, nothing's changed. Everything on the socials is the same.
Yeah.
All the content that's going out is the same, but it's just the office isn't there anymore.
Yeah. So I have two different consultancies that I work with in the UK. I have filmmakers in Pakistan, India, and Bulgaria. And my graphic designer is an amazing guy with a family in Bulgaria. You know, like we know each other. You know, we've worked for years, you know, when his father sadly passed away. And then, you know, he's got 2 children. And so, you know, this is not just like, oh, do this. You know, this is a lovely human and we message each other. I have PAs in the Philippines. And then I'm just looking at potentially bringing on some people from America as well. All run digitally. Yes. Do forgive me. And of course, I have an amazing letting agency in Bristol that manages my portfolio. And I also have an amazing letting agency up in Glasgow that manages my property up there.
Wow.
Yeah, well, just turn inside out.
Getting back to the point, and all of this has come from people being lazy asses that you employ.
Yes. I'm going to be really honest. I mean, listen, James, see, now I try and make it a policy. I'm not really a negative person, as you know. I'm much more like, but I try and make it a policy never to grump openly. So, yeah, you've got me there. Yeah, to be honest. And do you know what? Oh, I'm in trouble now. Do you know where it came from? I'm going to pinpoint the exact moment. So I always like the people that work for me to end up owning property. And to be fair, you know, one of the guys, he's actually now turned into a really dear friend of mine called Arthur. Do you remember Arthur?
Yeah, I remember Arthur, yeah. Yeah.
You know what Arthur's doing right now?
A castle, right?
Pretty much. He's currently spending 30 grand a week on builders on his mansion where Queen Elizabeth I slept in it. Now that he's 29. You know, and he came into my business age 18, and he and I worked together for about 7 years. But during that time, it is fair to say we became genuine friends, and now we're very good friends despite our age difference. So that's what I love. I'd love all my people that work with me to end up going through that way. But what it was somebody who I really liked. I won't name the person, and you know, bless them, they'd made a few mistakes, you know, and asked them to self-correct and da-da-da. And so they were moving on to another. They could see the writing on the wall because I was slowly changing the team from inside to outside. So they moved on to another organization, and I genuinely had hoped to give them a piece of kindness to say, look, just be mindful. In my position, these mistakes were what you made, and I genuinely meant it as an older mentoring person, giving somebody who's quite young and starting out a couple of good bits of advice that maybe slightly wince at the time, but actually really kind of keep their eyes open for the next job so they can succeed, right?
Yeah.
It was no kind of like grumpiness. It was genuine. Let me be of constructive support to you so that you don't make the same mistakes again, effectively.
And they took massive offense to it, I'm guessing.
They emailed me and said, if you contact me again, I'm calling the police.
Oh, wow.
What? And then they jumped into the office because obviously I always buy leaving cakes, very fancy, very expensive leaving cakes. So they jumped in the office, nabbed their vegan leaving cake, thereby not sharing it with the team, and buggered off.
Wow.
And I just thought, oh, I was trying to help. I'm not going to work with that kind of mentality, that entitled mentality again. Yeah. So it was an interesting moment of this is peak entitlement, and this isn't how the world works, but I refuse to work within this system. If you feel that this is a system that is going to run, I'm going to simply remove my system to a place that understands that efficient and hard work is how you get results, as well as intelligent strategy.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you totally.
Yes. So that is interesting. When you say what's happening in the UK, that's an interesting aspect of it, isn't it? But then what's also happening in the UK, Section 24, so property investors like me who've got the majority of their properties in their personal name are getting hammered for tax. And, people are moving things into limited companies. Some of those schemes have been notified as tax avoidance. Some of those schemes are perfectly acceptable because they've been done correctly. And so landlords are leaving the marketplace, and therefore rents are going up very significantly. The politics is changing mainly because tenants now are within voting age. I mean, you do the PESEL, political, economic, social, legal, technological. You knew that was going to happen 10 years ago. As people bought houses later, they then tipped over into, oh yeah, we actually vote now, because younger people vote a wee bit less than older people. So once you've got tenants in the voting age, the politicians have to sit up and take note, which they are doing. And therefore, tenants' rights are being strengthened. Landlord rights are not necessarily always being strengthened. So what that means is you need to look at that political and legal framework, and you need to say, okay, which kind of tenant type am I going to keep in my portfolio, and which kind of tenant type I'm not going to keep. And of course, what you do is you keep the solid, mature, sensible, easy to work with type. And unfortunately, you decide that I'm not going to contract with people who are much more likely to default, because my ability to change that contract, i.e. not have you there anymore if you're not paying for the service, or chase you through the courts for payment or actually get paid, is diminished because of the political and legal changes. And therefore, I simply ensure my product fits the new political and legal changes. So you just analyze what's happening. You don't take an absolute heart attack about it, and then you just readjust and tweak.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going through a similar situation at the moment. I mean, I had a tenant for the three years. She's been good as gold. Suddenly, she decides she's not going to pay any rent anymore. She's had a bit of a bust up with her partner. And I've tried everything. I've given her notice. I've tried to liaise with her, speak to her on a nice note. And she knows the system too well. And, now I'm at the point where there's a Section 8 going in, a Section 21 going in. And, this morning I got told by the solicitor that, it has to go in as a paper copy. So it's going to take a couple of weeks before it's even registered at the court. And I'm thinking,
what?
So I'm in for over nearly, £15,000 worth of rent loss. She's basically giving me a double finger. I've got somebody ready to buy that property off me, but I can't do anything unless I follow these rules.
Yes. So I only take tenants where we have parental or other guarantors. Those guarantors have to own houses so that there's always an asset fallback. I don't take any tenants these days without guarantors. That's changed, but that's a response to the political environment. And we, with all the students, with the majority of students, we get the year up front because we don't want to collect the rent, because you're going to have to pay it. You're going to have to pay it. Or if they can't do it up front, we do it on a quarterly basis. So the minute your student loan comes in, you're paying your rent. Yes. So that there's and all we've done is we've strengthened all of our kind of back end systems, looking at the risk that the front end political and legal changes make. And then the other thing that's happened, of course, for property is a lot of the people from Europe have gone home. Partly, like the Polish economy has come up as well, whereas 15 years ago, people came from Poland and, they made their fortune here, or not fortune, but, they earned a really good living here. But they're like, I'm going home now.
Yeah.
I can make an earning in Poland now. And that's because of where our economy sits with other economies. So we've not helped ourselves with things like Brexit, have we, necessarily?
Yeah, it's just, when I compare it to like places in the UAE, so I'll give you an example. When a tenant moves into a property here, you're well within your rights to ask for the rent up front day one. And it's quite common that you get all of your rent up front. Now, if you say to them, okay, you can pay me monthly, you can increase the rent by 15% because you're giving them a credit facility, right?
Of course, yes.
The other great thing is we have an Emirates ID here in the UAE, and this Emirates ID has every bit of information about you, your medical history, your job history, how much money you have, your bank account. When you take a tenancy here, which is called an Ijari, it's linked to this damn thing here. So it's cross-referenced with this, and it knows, is he telling the truth about his job? Is he telling the truth about his wages, etc., etc.?
Yes.
So there's total peace of mind for you. And the other thing the country has put rules in place where if somebody defaults on a payment, it's looked at as a criminal act, and you can be in a lot of trouble for it. So
it is theft. It is theft at some point. Because you're thieving what you said you would do, and you're still taking the services. Unless you abandon the property, and then, okay, technically it's theft on a contractual basis, but you're not actually using the services anymore.
Yeah.
Interesting. Whereas, can I jump in here? 15 years ago, when I was taking tenants, if a tenant said, can I pay up front for the year? I'd be like, let's check they're not running a marijuana plant. So look how that's changed. Honestly, if somebody said, can I pay up front for a year? I was suspicious rather than pleased. Because, I have known people who've had marijuana factories in their houses, and the houses burned down. In fact, I bought one. It hadn't burnt down, but it had some damage. Yeah, so 15 years ago, that would have made me wary.
It's odd. It's so odd you say that, Susannah, because I've had somebody in one of our HMO rooms, and she said, can I pay my rent up for 6 months? And again, I'm like, why is she saying this? Yeah. And it transpires when we had a conversation with her, she's just gone through a divorce. She's had a divorce settlement come through. She's not currently working. She's actively looking for work, and she's had a very good career. And first I'm like, oh shit, do I really want to be getting involved in this? But then she sent a credit file across. She's not really hidden anything. And when you look at her credit file, it's been it's a good credit file. So now I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll take you on for 6 months. As I'm probably not going to issue her a proper ASD. It's going to be like one of these Airbnb kind of lease type contracts, so I can get out of it. But like you say, 10 years ago, I would have been shitting myself thinking, why do they want to, are they going to run an illegal brothel? What's going to go on? Is it going to cost me loads of money to put right? But now I'm thinking, this is a blessing in disguise.
Yep. So look how quickly things change, and you have to adapt and you have to shift your mentality. Now, the other thing that's happening here, it's happening more in Barcelona. Like, luckily for me, I don't rent my houses out. They're my homes. But I live 9 minutes from the sea in Barcelona. So you can imagine how glorious that is. But for me, it's not a money making, it's my home. But they just put a ban on all Airbnb in Barcelona, all apartments, because
wow.
And that goes back to my black and white strong man. Remember 1939, guys. Let's not forget this. I mean, this is why we joined Europe. Was 1939 was because of World War II, and we realized we were more strong together. But that basically it is a little bit more, Barcelona for the Catalans. So we're start, but I know that's. It's a very socialist a kind of culture in Barcelona, and a very creative one, which is why I adore it. And I quite like the Catalan mentality, which is often a bit like no, and then later on they embrace you. But the first word is no, and you're like, oh, and it was fun buying property there, I tell you. But that is also changing. And again, if we look at the political, you can see that Airbnb is going to alter. So anybody who's doing so, for example, I've done service accommodation for years, and the week before COVID, the lockdown, we could tell the lockdown was happening. We turned all of my service accommodation into single-lets. I mean, it was a bit of a scramble, I have to tell you. We filled them all. And for the first time in my life, I discounted rent to get them filled. And thank God we got everyone filled. So those tenants got a very nice run of it for the first 6 months. And then obviously prices went back to normal. So they got the COVID discount, but you can see that service accommodation is going to change. And in a way, as much as I'm going to get pinged with like tomatoes for this one, it's not a bad thing because of things like the health and safety and the kind of, I only go to superhosts, and even superhosts aren't as clean as hotels, so it needed the industry to have raised higher standards to have avoided that. They didn't. And also I did think that the hotel industry was very slow in lobbying for that. They were real fools. They let that in, and you're thinking, why are you letting in a massive competitor infiltrate, and you seem to have not noticed, and you haven't clamped down on it with your lobbying fast enough? So It's interesting to observe. So that's coming as well. So and then of course now you're going to have to pay their tax on your mortgages with service accommodation as well, which of course was a let-out clause if you had the properties in your personal name.
Do you feel it's quite a low barrier to entry? I mean, service accommodation especially, I know rent to rent is not your favourite because you always used to say it's just a glorified job.
Yes.
And, you know, and do you feel, I think there's too many mentors out there that make it look easy, and people take on these properties, put them on Airbnb, the properties get wrecked, they don't know what to do, they're in these mad contracts where they end up paying thousands to get stuff fixed.
Yep.
So, I personally feel rent to rent needs to stop as well, because, again, so many people are able to just grab a property, make some false promises, and they show that they're earning X amount out of it. Are they actually following the legislation? Are they actually making sure these properties are up to scratch, good maintenance, good homes for people? I don't think a lot of these young guys are. It's just about how much can I nick from this property.
There are some good ones. I won't name them just because I don't want to kind of clump them in this conversation. Now, a couple of my friends in Bristol, to be fair, people I really respect, are doing great in rent to rent, and if they're running it professionally, amazing. But yeah, there's I think what it is that there's a bunch of people that don't realize how much work it is to manage tenants. So that's why these days I've outsourced that to an amazing letting agency in Bristol, Jack and Angeliki and Dan. They're just stunningly good, you know, and I'm forever grateful to work with them. And also they're a joy to work with, you know, see you, raise you, and you think, oh, you're really good. You know, but I think when people are kind of selling courses on rent to rent, they're not having the conversation to say, if you're the one doing the property management and you're going to amass quite a significant portfolio, it's going to be 24/7, and it's not always going to be polite. I mean, I didn't ever do rent to rent. I investigated it. I was super excited about it as a beginner, thinking, wait, and then I looked at it and went, whoa. You mean I'm contracting to pay the rent, but they can default on me? Whew, no. And I just remember a moment. Now, my son's now 27, but when he was 15, he and I were in Manchester and we were going to see the parkour world champion. We were meeting up. Basically, no, he must have been. No, yeah, he was 15. Sorry, this was later that I taught him to drive. Teaching your son to drive between Manchester and London, I'm telling you, is a bit sweaty.
Well, when he's 15.
No, he was a little bit older. We did the whole... I just thought young men are crazy. I mean this with love. Young men are crazy. They have to be taught to drive and they have to have loads of experience. So I just made him drive me from Manchester to London. There was a couple of moments, I tell you, what we laugh about now. We didn't then. So we were going to see this parkour world champion, and it was amazing to come, so I remember having this lovely weekend with my son, and this bloomin' tenant is like, phoning me about a light bulb, and I'm thinking, I'm with my boy. Yeah. The last thing I want to do is talk to you and have an argument with you that it's your contractual duty to change the light bulb, not mine. You know, and that was that kind of light bulb moment, if you pardon the pun, of looking at my son. We were walking in the hotel corridor and he was ahead of me, and you know, we had this amazing weekend planned and you know, all the rest of it, and suddenly I'm distracted by a conversation about light bulbs because the tenants hadn't appreciated it's their job to replace a light bulb. And you think, hang on, you're detracting from me spending time with one of the people I love most in the world. Stop that. So I have to stop that by outsourcing that. And I think people don't realise on rent to rent how involved you need to be and how professional you need to run it.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I mean, I kind of, every time I look at it, I just think, yeah, unless you're doing it properly. I have met people that do run it properly where they've got so many units and there's a system and a process in place. It's the ones that annoy me that come online and it's just like, yeah, I can do this. And I think to myself, you haven't got the foggiest. You probably aren't even doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah. But you see that with deal packaging as well. And I encourage people to start with deal packaging. You know, you can run it the way I run it, which is professionally, which was charge 5%, create your demand before you create the supply. You know, your investors have to join your group. They have to sign the terms and conditions. You've got to really vet them. You're deciding to take them on rather than them deciding to take you on, although obviously it's both which ways. Or, so if somebody's selling a 300 grand house, they're going to get paid 15 grand a deal. Well, that's not bad, is it? But that 300 grand house should be worth 400 to 420. So the investor's getting an amazing deal as well. You know, everybody's winning. Or you can see people teaching to do deal packaging, earning 2 to 3 grand. You get it from an online app and then you punt it out on Facebook. It's like, that isn't going to work. You're going to scrabble around. You're going to drop your price. You've got no demand. You've got no systems. You're just punting, and you're going to fall out of this and be disillusioned. And you haven't actually learned to source discounted deals or negotiate and talk with investors, which will really stand you in good stead for the future. So, but by mistake, so the street I was in Brooklyn, the houses are like 3 to 4 million quid, and here was one being sold for 1 million. Yeah. Because I still got those skills. I didn't even try. Barcelona, I bought my own apartment, and of course it was discounted. And my son lives in the next street. And so I've very gently looked for a couple of deals and found them immediately because I've got those skills. They're so entrenched in me that I could make a cup of tea. They're like making a cup of tea. They're so natural. Speaking of which, I've only had one cup of tea today. What?
Yeah, no, I think, they're transferable skills. Like myself being in Dubai now,
yes,
it has been transferable skills that I've learned, and I think that's why I've done so well in a short period of time. And I really see real estate brokers come out and struggle, and I feel sorry for them because the barrier to entry in this country, I say it all the time, is very, very low with real estate. There's so many real estate brokers. I mean, everybody is a real estate broker here. And if you mention to someone you're a real estate broker, you're looked at as the worst, one of you scammers, But I think people are sold a false dream here. You see it on Instagram. You see people driving around in lovely cars, making lots of money, wearing nice clothes and doing their thing. But it is not like that. I've seen people come out here who haven't made a single dirham for a year. And Dubai is an evil place. It will chew you up, spit you back, and you're at DXB airport heading back to Liverpool where you're going to go and work the same shitty job you did, and you've got no better. And the reason is because you've not invested to understand how the process works. And the more I see this with the young brokers, I think to myself, somebody needs to bring out some kind of program where it shows look, this is how you do it.
Yeah.
And it's pretty simple.
First off, I was admiring your jacket earlier. I didn't say to you, you're looking sharp, by the way.
Thank you.
Love it. Love it.
I have 27 tailor-made suits now.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. We're going sideways. I flew to Bangkok last year. I've spent 6 weeks in Thailand, and I may have gone to 2 tailors, one of whom would dress George Bush. Yes, highest tailors in Thailand, in Bangkok. And so I would go for a fitting, and Madam may have returned with around 30 items of tailored cashmere and silk clothing. And then I'd fly off to the islands for 2 weeks, and then I'd come back to Bangkok for a fitting. Then I'd go up to Chiang Mai for 2 weeks, then I'd come back to Bangkok for a fitting. It was so much fun. I am all about the tailor-made now. Anyway, we're going sideways, but it was so much fun. So much fun. But you're a very good networker. You're very extrovert, and you're also a deal maker. And you had an amazing day yesterday. Kudos to you. I don't know if you're going to share that. But...
Well, I will. Yeah, I closed 3 deals in one day. And some people here I know would struggle to close that all year. But again, I left in the morning, I manifested, and I felt the manifestation. I said to myself, I am going to close a mega deal today. And I felt it in my body, I felt it in my bones and everything. And these are some of the things I learned while I was out in Bali, which I'll go into in a little bit.
Oh, yes, please.
I walked out and I said, I'm going to do something today. And I walk into my first meeting and I'm there. Brilliant first meeting. Absolutely loved it. The guy's not quite ready to buy, but I got a lot of information out of him. He's a very wealthy business owner. Again, needs someone he can trust, someone can hold his hand. And he sat for two hours talking, and only 10 minutes was about investing in Dubai. The rest was talking about him and understanding who he is as a person.
That's always the way with the high-level investors, isn't it? Like, they're figuring you out, you're figuring them out. Once you figured, we could do business together, it's a 10-minute job on the deal. And it's effectively a handshake, which of course then gets backed up by lawyers, but it's scribbled on the back of an envelope or just discussed very briefly. We've understood the structure. Right, let's go. Yes, always.
Yeah.
So guys, if you're thinking of investing in Dubai, we offer 2 services. Number 1, you can book a consultation call with us. Now, what this consultation call involves, it's a full overview of Dubai where we show you what's going on, where the new up-and-coming spots are to invest. It's a totally free call, so I highly advise, if Dubai is pricking your attention, get that call booked in so you can find out where to invest next.
And, it was a great meeting. And I said to him, look, you're not ready today. You may not be ready tomorrow, but I'd like to think I've left enough impact on you that when you are, you'll pick up the phone and you'll come straight through to me.
Yeah.
And he said, absolutely. And, even just off of that meeting, I got 2 referrals from him.
So networking galore. Yeah, very effective. Yeah. You followed up with both those referrals.
Oh, absolutely, straight away. And then I walk into my second meeting and I'm thinking to myself, this guy, he's going to buy something because I felt he's going to buy something. He ends up buying 2 things. And you think to yourself, okay, he's bought 2 things because I've presented it to him. I know my figures, I know my data, I know the product inside out. There's no one who can come in and know that product better than me. And I made it clear to him as well. And, he trusted me, he liked me. And it turns out he's actually a social media expert. And I had lunch with him today, and he gave me a 1-hour strategy session for free, which he charges several thousands of pounds for. And, it cost me a nice lunch. But, and I've got, not only have I gained a client, but I've gained someone who's helping me in my business, and I'm giving him business as well. So it's become like this whole little ecosystem. But I think the thing is, people forget that it is a process. And I remember something that you always said, James, it's all about touch points. Touch point. And I have a CRM system, and I forget stuff. If I don't put it in the CRM system and it doesn't ping me to tell me to ring that person, I will forget.
Yeah.
And it's just as simple as managing the lead flow, managing who you're going to contact, and, not being an absolute dick and using your ears to listen rather than, talk. People just talk and it's just like sell. I'm like, listen, what does the person want?
Yeah.
You're presenting them with a property, and in fact, they just want a little 1-bedroom that him and his wife can come and stay in 5 times a year. And you're trying to sell him a damn villa.
Yeah.
Work it out.
Yeah. And also, like you said, we've had a good relationship. You're not ready yet, but I hope that you'll be comfortable with me doing the business for you as and when you are ready. It's going at their flow points. So you're going to have some slow burners, some fast burners. Yeah. 5 to 9 touch points before somebody trusts you generally. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why your social media is so important, which I've enjoyed watching, by the way.
Thank you. And I've put it down to 3 things: know, like, and trust. And it's as simple as that. Social media gets you known.
Yes.
Then when you have a face-to-face meeting, that person's going to like you.
Yep.
And once they like you, it's inevitable. If they're looking to buy and they're not a time waster, they're going to buy from you.
And I also think the trust is about, yes, the stuff you do, but it's also about what you might call the hygiene factors. So, I don't know, say you said, I'm going to send you something. You send it to them. Say they give you 2 referrals. They hear back from one of those referrals, yeah, he called me that day. They hear that you deliver as and when expected. In that lunch, how did you treat the waiter? That I always judge my investors on how would they. We had volunteers when we ran investor days, and so everybody's nice to me because, of course, I'm going to make them really wealthy because I'm a deal packager that's spinning out 50 deals a year. So, you guys are going to get wealthy if you work with me. It's pretty. I wouldn't call it guaranteed because you can't say that word, but it's pretty damn obvious. But are they nice to our volunteers who are taking their coffee orders, taking their coats? If they're not, I'm not working with them because I can't trust you. Because if you're going to be mean to the volunteer because they would like to take your coat and get your tea order, you're going to be mean to me when it goes wrong. Because inevitably in property, at some point, something goes wrong at some time with some projects. Yeah. I need you to kind of be able to keep your cool. Yeah.
So, I think kind of like the trust thing keeps coming up time and time again as well in real estate. I think people have to trust you. I mean, I had a nice meeting just earlier today with a client who's flown in from the UK. He's on holiday here. He goes, I've seen you on social media. Can you come and see me? And the first thing he said to me, first of all, I appreciate you driving 40 minutes to come and see me, which I didn't mind doing because he was in a nice hotel and it's nice to have a meeting in a nice hotel. And then it transpires that his whole portfolio, which is over 700 clients in the UK, probably, I think he was close to 50 HMOs. So he's not a small fish. And he said to me, he goes, James, my whole business has been built with 2 agencies that trust me. He goes, and if they send me a deal and I say yes, even if I have cold feet with that deal later on, I never pull out. Because once I've made a commitment, I'm there and I'm doing that deal. He goes, I need absolutely the same thing here in Dubai. And this guy really questioned me with some objections, because he said, one of the things he said to me, which I thought was a really interesting question, I don't mind talking about it because I'm quite open. He said to me, so James, the area that you're selling me is an area that you invest in as well. I went, yeah. He goes, so what happens when you get below market value deals in that area? He goes, are you buying them also? And I went, yeah, I will buy deals that come up in that area. And he goes to me, how do I know if I'm getting the best deal if I'm up against you and you're buying deals? And I said to him, I said, listen, I'm very transparent. I will show you exactly what I've bought something for, and I will show you exactly what I'm offering you at that price as well. And I said, let's be fair. There's 2 things. You've obviously got far more money than me, so I can't buy all the deals because eventually I'm running out of money. I go, and secondly, my wife's going to kill me because I'm supposed to be buying a family villa out there. And every so often, I'm going home and telling her, oh, I've bought another property. I've bought another property. I've bought another property, you know? So, oh, sorry, I've got this damn Siri doing something here. Okay, yeah. So it comes to a point where I can't keep buying. And I said to him, I said, look, I'll be totally transparent with you. I can see that you're somebody who buys below market value. And it's very evident from what you're telling me. I said, in 2 weeks' time, I have a repossession list coming for the area I work in. I go, I'm going to show you the area on Saturday morning. I'm going to make sure you're familiar with everything so that in 2 weeks' time, when I ring you and say, I've got this unit, this unit, this unit, are you ready to go? You just need to say the word yes to me. Because I thought, this is his buying way. This is how he buys. And he was like, absolutely. If you can do that for me, I'm all in. I trust you. And I thought, okay, that went well.
So you listened to him, you heard how he likes to work, you answered objections, you told him the truth, so he knows you're not a bullshitter, and then you produced a plan, and then you told him what your requirements were for him as well. So it's not a surprise, is it? Dr. Thomas Stanley wrote a really interesting book about the millionaire mind, and it was the millionaire woman next door, the millionaire next door, and he did a lot of research around millionaires, and the majority of millionaires are in stable relationships, which again is usually marriage, but again is all about trust, isn't it? And so once you and exactly what happened with my top. So in fundraising, there's always I've paid back my investors now, but in fundraising, there's always a triangle, and the people at the top of the triangle are the guys with the 5-10 million quid. That are willing to invest in you. And those people always behaved in that way. It was, we need to be able to trust each other. And if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to renege. I'm not going to renegotiate. In fact, I never had a renegotiation. But I suspect that, if the economy suddenly dropped, there needs to be a readjustment. But that's because of genuine external factors.
That's exactly what he said. He goes, I never chip at a deal once it's done. He goes, there's only been once when I've had to renegotiate when the value came in very, very low. Yeah. He goes, and that's understandable. He goes, but I'm not one of those tire kickers that will try and get 50 grand off or 10 grand off right on the last day.
So people aren't mean, they're not tight, but they want a longer term value relationship. But if you don't produce, they're not going to keep working with you. Yeah, that's exactly what I found as well. Sounds like you are flowing out there right now. Sounds good.
Yeah, and the other thing was yesterday I had an apartment here which is 15th floor. It's a beautiful balcony all the way around. It's something you'd see in New York. It overlooks the whole skyline and it's cheap, but it needs a refurb. Now clients here, they don't want to get their hands dirty. I know full well that this guy back home does this day in, day out. I presented it to him. I said, look, we're probably going to have to spend, it's only a minor refurb, maybe £30,000. We'll put a new kitchen in, some new bathrooms, we'll tile it, just get it looking fresh, put a little island in the middle. He goes, James, absolutely. If you're telling me that I can do that and in a few years' time, it's going to be worth X amount more, I'm prepared to take that risk. Because he goes, I have funds. It's not as if I'm looking to take bridging finance or anything like that. I could deploy these funds and sit on. So sometimes it's listening, working out what this guy is all about and then presenting the right deal to him.
Yeah. I for the 3 months I was in Brooklyn, I lived 3 streets away from Ryan Serhant, from Manhattan. And it was fun to see that program coming out during my stay there. So I might tell you that when I went for like my morning bagel, I may have gone past his house.
Oh, nice. I was going to say you went for a run with him or something.
No. He was away in Greece for the majority of the time. And obviously their program just came out, so they're a bit mindful of their environment, the blind. But yeah, I quite liked even just, we know it's a reality show, but his management style was very simple, very clear, and very forward-moving, focused on the goals.
He's genuinely a nice person, because I met him in Abu Dhabi. He came to speak at one of the events. And one of the things he said was, social media, just creating content and have eyeballs on you. And I think, I'm diversing here, but if people don't realize that the new currency is social media and eyeballs on you, they're asleep.
Yeah, agreed. Well, Daniel Priestley wrote that book, Key Person of Influence, 14 years ago or something, and it's absolute, but that's not to shine a light on you and what you ate for breakfast. It's to shine a light on this can be done. So you are effectively the conduit to say, this is the business we're doing, or this can be done. Yeah. We always use social media in the early days to get investors coming to Investor Day, to showcase some of our students, all of that kind of stuff. Yeah, it works great. And again, in pre-COVID, we always had very good photos of all the properties. But in the couple of weeks before COVID, we were like, right, we need video walkthroughs of every single property, because we don't know how long this lockdown is going to last. So we just made sure we could let out a property without necessarily people getting into the property. Because in the early days, with risk assessment, you didn't want to put somebody new into a property to see it. You had to evacuate the property, get new people in, then get the cleaning crew in. It's like, oh, for heaven's sake, can we just send you a video? Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, look, I have totally turned inside out how my business functions, and you'd have never known from the outside.
No. And that's what I'm saying to you. I've spoken to you after quite a while, and for me, somebody looking in, it looks exactly the same.
Yep. But
everything's still happening.
Yeah. But the gorgeous thing that I like about something like social media, so all that batching, all that kind of Tim Ferriss efficiency, 4 hours work week and all of that malarkey. So the social media, very little of my social media is an immediate jerk response, or me waking up in the morning thinking, oh my God, what am I going to put today? It's done in advance. It's planned in advance. So our campaigns are planned in advance. Everything's chill, smooth, gentle. And then, of course, you can respond to things, but the actual content is created and done well in advance, so that you have a very chilled, smooth business rather than a kind of last-minute-itis business. Love it.
Mm-hmm. Susannah, we could talk for hours, but I want to quickly move this along, because I'm on a limited time in this space that I've nicked off of somebody. Wellness. I want to talk about wellness.
Have you done a deal with somebody? Have you turned on your cheeky chappy and got us some favors? Yes.
I did, actually. The thing is, in our office, we have a podcast corner.
Yes.
And I knew this podcast was happening, and we still haven't set up the mic stand, so I had to do this here. Anyway, But wellness. So look, I recently experienced, I would say about 3 months ago, very close to burnout, like very, very, very close. And I had to make some decisions. And look, I came across a company, or a kind of a place in Bali called the Bali Time Chamber, and they're huge on Instagram. And their whole motto was, it's designed for men.
Yes.
It's a place where you go, where it's just focused on eating really good food. So lots of steaks, lots of meats. It's not for vegans. And they make that very clear. There was a gym where you could train.
Yeah.
And there's cold plunges, a sauna, a steam room, and an area where you can work. So you got to have some kind of projects. You're in the mountains of Bali, so you're completely away from tourist spots. Only people surrounding you are local people and weird animals that you hear at night. Now, I thought to myself, right, I need to go off-grid, like completely. And, my wife and the kids went back to the UK for a whole month, and I thought this is the time to do it. Checked in for a whole month. And I tell you, I remember pulling up and the car can't even go to the location because it's all up mountain. And I get there 11 o'clock at night and I'm looking around thinking, oh my God, have I made the right decision? Yeah. But the first week flew through, second week flew through, third week it got really, really intense in the sense that I'm away from all the comforts that I know. So I built little systems, in the morning, I'd train early in the morning, I'd eat well. I'd go and sit in this little coffee shop that was run by this little family and I'm drinking black coffee, reading, looking out onto a waterfall, looking at the mountains and just, it was really weird because it was exactly what I needed. I'm surrounded by nature. I kind of took all my projects with me that I wanted to work on. And within the second week, I realized, hold on, 70% of this work is not getting done. So don't beat yourself up about it. Put it aside. I grabbed a good book and I was reading, listening to music and just working on whatever the hell I wanted to work on. And I took it real, real easy. And I've come back and I've improved so many things in my life. My sleep's improved. My health's improved. I've lost a load of weight. I feel great. And my focus is there, no brain fog. So my question to you is, and also while I was in Bali, I had a look at Bali is very wellness centered, some places are all about wellness. And I met some amazing people, young people that are millionaires in shorts and flip-flops, building villas, laptop lifestyle, walking around, tanning on the beach and just living life how life should be. So it's got me really thinking how important health and wellness is. And wellness seems to be the new thing. I know before it was like, let's go out for a couple of gin and tonics down the pub. But now, I'm not seeing that anymore. I'm seeing, let's go and train. Let's go to a yoga class. Let's go to a kinesthetics class, CrossFit class. Yeah. Let's go and chill, have some good food, read some good books, join a book club. How important has wellness been to you? Because I know, look, you had a technical glitch, like you say. And I didn't have a technical glitch, but I was affected by a technical glitch. With what? It was more than a technical glitch with my mother. But how important do you think now? Horrific time. How important do you think now, more than anything, wellness is?
Oh, massive, massive. So even before when I was kind of doing 50 deals a year, I would go weightlifting with Sunny 3 times a week at 7 a.m. So for an hour and a half a session. So you could not do anything other than focus on making sure that bar doesn't crash on your head, listening to the technical ability of a coach. And so be in the zone, be in the moment. And I always, as you know, was into functional fitness like CrossFit in order to have an outlet for this, because doing 50 deals a year is fairly stressful. So to have an outlet for that and also, buying my own. And the irony on my technical glitch, which, because of course we knew each other all the way through your mum as well, didn't we? And, I knew before your mum was diagnosed, and I loved how close you were with her. That was even looking in on that was heartbreaking to watch and to know that was happening. Yeah. I had the same technical glitch, but in different places. Did you know, James, I ended up being diagnosed with 4 different cancers in 3.5 years?
No, I didn't. No.
I'm laughing, but it's not funny.
How greedy.
Yeah. Well, why do one?
Yeah.
And so I went wide, and that was in a pandemic, because why not? And that was when our NHS was compromised, and rather unfortunately, one of the departments. So there were bits to the NHS that were magnificent, and I will say this: if I'd stayed within that department, I would be dead. And that's black and white. I would be dead. So I ended up spending 150 grand on my own treatment, which is not necessarily okay, considering how much tax I pay. But I like being alive, so I prefer.
Good way to put it.
Yeah. So what happened? So my plan, as you possibly know, was I was going to rent a villa in Bali for 6 months, and then COVID hit. So I was like, okay, we'll do all the digital stuff instead. And then the following January, I got diagnosed, and it just came in thick and fast. I got diagnosed with 3 in that 1 year, and it was like, doof, doof, doof. So our British culture of being reactive really scares me. Having been in hospitals and, had all the treatment, chemo, radiotherapy, surgery, and I was on, after they cut out 10% of my lung, I was on the exercise bike the next day in the ward doing a workout with Charlie, who's my dear friend, but also Charlie, all the way through cancer. We would do PT twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week. And when you can't stand up from the chemotherapy because you don't have the energy. So he was like, okay, we'll do a 95-year-old exercise workout today, and every week we'll work down 5 years. So we'll do 95 years today. We'll do 90 years old next week. We'll do 85 the week after. And it was quite good fun throwing body parts at him and saying, right, Charlie, I've had this surgery. I've got this bottle in my arm. I've got this chemotherapy. I've got this radiotherapy. Right, mate, what have you got for me? So what happened, instead of doing my beautiful 6 months villa hire in Bali, which was my intention, I ended up with a massive spa in my house. And luckily for me, I had enough money with property coming in that I just literally stopped. I went to the meeting. The guy said, you've got cancer, which was a little bit of a surprise. I leant forward. I was with my daughter and I said, this better not kill me. So you can see the energy just came straight in. I'm not having this. But I also massively respected. I didn't ever think I'm going to beat this. I had none of that language around it. It was like, I'm here. The pathway to the tree, which is the fork in the road, is 200 meters ahead of me. And it's my job, a bit like the cycling team, to improve by 1% my immune system and preventative work. And so that the medical team, who are my partners, can do all the amazing medical stuff. But my job is to bring the best body and the most immune body and the most able body to try and add, 0.1%, 0.2%, 0.3%. And I'm going to respect the fact that I'm on a 60-40% live or die on one of my cancers, and then I had 3 more cancers. And I can't alter those stats, but what I can alter is this 200-meter run up to the decision point, which is this massive tree, and the path will go either way. So what do I do around health? So I did everything. I don't want to show you my oxygen tank, but it's here. We won't go into that, but I did absolutely everything. And if you've ever seen any, I think the best way is if folks have seen the series The Blue Zone. It is the Blue Zone, isn't it? Where they look at why do people live to 100 years, or what are the key components? There's a very interesting book called Radical Remissions by she's an amazing doctor. So her, I'll look it up. Radical Remissions, and her very sensible thinking was, why do people who are supposed to die, they've been told they're going to die, why do they not, Dr. Kelly Turner, why do they not die? It's a really sensible question. What are the key correlations we can that happen with those people that technically were given a terminal diagnosis and yet lived? What did they do? And there were 72 correlations, but she highlighted it to the top 9. And it was, filtered water, organic food, exercise, community, love and support, sense of purpose, etc., etc. And they're the exact same correlations as most of the Blue Zone people. So what it really is here's your immune system. And it sounds like with your burnout, that sounds like your immune system was kind of on the floor, and it rebuilt you back up. You were in nature, you were drinking and eating very good food, you were in community, you had a purpose, you've got your family, I'm sure they were communicating with you. So that's love and affection. So it's really interesting to look at what can boost the human system beyond medicine. Yeah. And so I just went all in on everything. I mean, what was gorgeous, my house was filled with flowers for 6 to 9 months. There wasn't a minute that I didn't have at least one bouquet of flowers, if not 2, 3, 4, 5, from the people who love me and who I love. And they were like little proxy people, these beautiful bouquets of flowers. And you're just like, oh, I love that person and they love me. Oh, I love that person and they love me. So you're connected the whole time, even if you're not seeing everybody all the time. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, getting back to one of the points you said there, why do some people survive and they don't? I read a really good book while I was in Bali called When the Body Says No.
Yes.
By Gabor Matt, I think.
I've got
it was a very hard read to initially get into. But then I started realizing that it's the same pattern time and time and time again. You know, the people that had any kind of trauma in their life, or they were holding on to any kind of ill feelings, or they haven't aired out any things, they're the guys that had a really, really tough time. Or one of the things were when people found it difficult to say no to things, like they were always people pleasers. Oh, that is one that stuck out.
We're now pointing fingers at each other. Yes.
And that was one, and I was like, okay. And then he was saying the people that have done really, really well are the ones that have been loved. They've got a supporting family. They're people that have, you know, they care about people. And I'm thinking, is it really as simple as this?
Well, there's actually, because, you know, I'm a geek. So, and again, by the way, I'm not a doctor. However, I read over 1,000 medical papers because I was quite keen on not dying, and I had a very, very significant chance of dying. And I read about 120 books. So it doesn't mean to say I know anything more than I learned. Okay. I'm not trying to take a stake out in medicine, because I'm a patient, or was, and am. And it was absolutely about, so when you look at these points about being loved and loving other people, and actually having strong personal boundaries, which is about self-esteem and good interpersonal skills, you then go, well, hang on, you've written a book. Okay, let me now look at the data on this. And it was really interesting to see, because the beauty of the digital world and the beauty of the fact we now have Chinese, Indian, American, we've got scientists from all over the world now doing studies, is that if you're reading papers which have been peer published in medical reviews, you're starting to see curiosity in all of these fields with significant medical or scientific peer-reviewed papers coming through. So one I really remember is prostate cancer guys. Obviously, it's only guys because ladies don't have prostates, but there's a 33% increase in reoccurrence if the gentleman is depressed. How? And that is by taking out all of the other factors. Like, you'd be like, well, if he's depressed, he's not eating well. No, they adjusted the data for all of that. Mm-hmm. And so it's fascinating to see how much either mindset or love or meaning or purpose or connection impacts on your immune system. And it's fascinating to read the scientific, because I'm like, okay, I'll read the book, but prove it, so then I'll go I'll say, show me the papers that prove or disprove this before I decide whether I'm going to move forward on it. Oh, yeah. And in fact, I ended up having a couple of amazing guides. One was Chinese acupuncture, and I wouldn't call him alternative cancer expert, because I still was very much like, give me all the, I walked into the chemo room going, hello, with my hair done and beautiful clothes on, going, give me the chemo. I want rainbow and chocolate, please. I walked in going, I'm embracing every single thing that will stop these cells replicating, please. And his first question to me was, do you want to live? Or do you want to live or die? And then the second question was, do you have unresolved issues they need to get resolved? As in, with somebody.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, this isn't some airy-fairy guy. He looked like a Victorian scientist, and he was a real rock for me because he had had such life experience treating cancer patients. He wasn't narrowed by the NICE guidelines, so he was able to observe the wider picture in his 25, 30 years of treating cancer patients, and he was able to observe what was also additional or not additional to patients who lived or died. Mm-hmm. And that, you could say, well, that's, heebie-jeebie. Well, let's have a look at all that stuff. And also, he was also very scientifically minded. These days you've got circulating blood tumor tests. Well, I was doing that stuff 3 years ago and paying a fair amount of money for it. But I was doing that stuff 3 years ago, saying just because it's not in the NICE guidelines doesn't mean to say it's not going to be efficient. Because that was the other thing I found fascinating, is that stuff that it took 10 to 20 years to come through. And you're like, kids, I don't have 20 years. I have to solve this problem now. So I need to look at the technology that's coming through, and I need to embrace a lot of that technology way in advance of you giving it to me. So therefore, where can I find it? In addition to, and I took all the kind of normal treatments, with rainbows and chocolate. So yeah, it was very interesting that social love and connection. And for me, I do think that love and connection played a very strong part. I mean, and then as you say, saying no afterwards has been fascinating. Some of my relationships have altered afterwards because what happens is any bullshit gets burnt away like mist. And so, and when you've gone through 4 cancers like I have, and you're in that waiting room on your own, and, they've sent you for a brain scan in case it's spread to your brain, it's not the most amazing, gorgeous time in your life. And so you really develop an inner strength of loving this beautiful human that is within you. And so that strength remains. And so when you come out and the dynamic of some relationships where, I'd often say yes, I started to say no, those relationships didn't last. It was very surprising. And I'm in a kind of informal, there's an amazing Instagram called The Cancer Patient. It's dark as anything, James. It's so funny. In fact, I'd look at it if I were you as well. It makes me spit out my tea with laughter, how dark and funny it is. And I'm in a kind of WhatsApp group and we are all finding that some of our relationships didn't last, primarily because we're saying no and not being people pleasers, whereas in the past we might have said yes.
Yeah. It's a really weird one because, even with myself, when I came back from Bali was a real eye-opener. One of the things I got to do was spend time with Dr. Anthony Chafee. He's a real advocate for carnivore movement, and he's a neurosurgeon. And we did a 2-hour podcast together. And, we spoke about my mum's condition, which was a glioblastoma in her brain, which, it's not curable. It is terminal. But he then started talking about cases where people went on a full carnivore diet and it bought them so much time. And he said there are still people that are living with this condition today because they've changed their diet. Yeah. And, I've been on the carnivore diet now for about 2 months, and it's the best thing I've ever done. I don't have any afternoon slumps. I'm not eating any shit. I'm treating food as complete fuel now. I see food I see it in a total different light. Yes. My morning routines are, whereas before, if there was a deal to be done, I'm there. If there's money to be made, I'm there. Now my routine's different. I wake up, I'm going to spend the first 10 minutes, 20 minutes sitting down, meditating on the balcony in the heat and just being present with myself. After that, I'm going for a swim, and then I'm coming back. I'm having a shower. I'm getting my clothes on. I'm not going straight to the office. I'm going into a coffee shop, having a nice coffee. I'm reading for an hour. I'm jotting down some notes. If I'm in that coffee shop for 2 hours, who gives a shit? That's my time. And I'm starting my day how I want to. And I'm someone who would never have believed in any of this mumbo jumbo of slowing yourself down. Yeah. And now I think totally different, even to the extent where I've paid quite a lot of thousands of pounds now to have a gym built in my garden, because I thought, I don't want to drive 25 minutes to the gym and 25 minutes back and waste 50 minutes of my life. I can get up and go in my own gym and train whenever the hell I want to train. And I have a housemaid as well, who helps with the children, helps with food and all of that. And I think I'm taking all this bullshit out of my life just so I can live my life. And I think the biggest eye-opener for me being in Bali was that I realized, yes, I love being in Dubai. I love what I'm doing out here. But I've realized that is a place where I want to go and just have my days, And
in Bali.
In Bali. And I spent...
A friend of mine, he and his partner develop up property in Bali.
And that's that's exactly what I did. I connected with the right people. Now I know how the Bali system works, how you buy land, how you register a company, how you get your residency, all of that. And it really excites me because this is now going to be a true passion project, because I want to build and I want to live there. I want to be there with my family. And, my eldest will be 18 in a few years' time. And my youngest, he'll still be kicking around for a bit longer. But after that, I said to my wife, I'm done. I am absolutely done, because there needs to be a stop point in life where you think, I have enough, or I didn't get to where I wanted to get to, but I'm totally happy. And this is where I keep going back to this wellness thing on the people that I met on my break of people that are really just living life at a slow pace, but they're doing so much better than everybody else that's hustling so hard.
What I'm finding really interesting is, so I had 3 years off. I just didn't work. Luckily, property was great, so it funded my ability to have my spa in my house, and also, I'd also lived in Barcelona, and that was my absolute chill space, beside the sea and all the rest of it. And what I found really interesting now, I've come back in because I love what I do. I am running a much more efficient, much more profitable business on much less time because of implementing a lot of the wellness stuff that I learned, which again, meditation, yoga, exercise, connection. And so what's happening is that then the time that I do work has to be highly efficient and highly productive and highly rewarding. Otherwise, don't do it unless it's a passion project. And so the odd thing is I'm working half the time and earning kind of double the money. You think, how? And it is about mindset, and it is about shift, and I suppose it is about self-value. I'm sure that's part of it as well. And it's about simplicity, which I find really interesting. Yeah. Yes, so we're kind of we're hitting the same journey through different routes.
Yeah, and I don't want to get to a point where I have a disaster in life where I think, okay, I'm going to do it now. I'm going to be 43 next year, and I'm thinking to myself, what is actually stopping me from doing this? I mean, there's nothing stopping me from getting things into motion now, and being out there, being with these local people, I realized that. Yeah, Bali is a great place. I mean, it has these places where people can go and get party, shit-faced, do whatever they want to do.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. But I didn't want to go to any of those places. And I'm quite happy with where I went. The local people were so accommodating. One evening I'm out on a scooter in the mountains and I run out of fuel like you do at 11 o'clock at night. And I'm in a local village. Somebody invites me and makes me a cup of coffee, fills up the scooter with some, fuel. And I'm back on my way again. I'm thinking, now, if I was in London, they'd probably rob my scooter, take my watch, and leave me half butt naked on the road, and laugh at me. So I really started to realize things out there that actually, you know what, this is the way and the avenue I want to move my life into. And
I think there's another part about once you run an international business like you and I both are doing with teams in different parts of the world, you quite quickly realize that just because somebody's got a tiny accent, it doesn't mean to say that they can't do highly efficient, really effective work. And so you get past any what I would call prejudices of if somebody's got an accent, their work isn't going to be as competent. And once you get past that, it's like the world flattens. You suddenly realize, well, we could do business anywhere, and we don't necessarily, it comes back to the beginning of the conversation. We don't necessarily need to be in the UK. And then the second part of the conversation says, as long as I have got standards and SOPs, and they're hitting the standards, I don't necessarily need to do all the work myself either, which is fascinating. I do think in the early days, you do have to do the kind of, entry in, do the work, understand how to have a conversation about changing light bulbs so that later on you can appreciate who's good, who's average, who's just spinning you a yarn. And it is a load of BS. And I'm sorry. So I do think the only way to do something like this, if you have any kind of business running still, is to only employ A-listers and just be very clear about the quality and standard of the work that you want to produce and your business wants to produce, and the people that you decide to work with and therefore pay need to produce as well. And then move away from feeling guilty if you're not the one doing the work. I mean, years ago, I used to feel guilty if I hadn't done 2 hours in the morning before anybody else turned up to my business, and then 2 to 3 hours in the evening. I just don't have that mindset anymore at all. Yeah. But I did. I always felt like the mother of the business. And now I'm like, no, I'm the strategic person leading it forward, but I'm requiring you to deliver. Whereas before I felt like I was sort of, needed to kind of rock people, and comfort them. And I'm like, no, we're A-listers. You need to deliver into me. And you need to deliver the standard that I'm looking for. But I need to be very clear about what that standard is and to give you the support and assistance and tools to deliver that standard. So I don't think you get it with E-listers. You only get it with A-listers.
Yeah, you're right. And, I think you've got to be able to, hire slowly and fire fast. And,
yes.
and that's something I really struggled with. But recently we've kind of reviewed our whole team, and we're kind of like, okay, you know what? You're not actually doing what you said you were going to do, and you've not got any better. So let's go out and try somebody else. And then when you do go and try somebody else, you think, okay, this person's actually a lot better. Or I sat down with the strategy guy today, and he's reviewing our Instagram account, and he goes, do you know what? You're actually doing really well. The metrics are really good in comparable to some influencers. Your metrics are a lot higher. So you think, okay, I've been told this by a strategist. Why am I listening to somebody who's got a camera telling me that we're not doing so well? We're not building the right kind of content. So, yeah, recently for us as well, we just thought, okay, if you're no good, see you later. No offense. It's not personal. It's just business.
It is pure business about where do we sit in the marketplace and what quality of work do we want to do. But it doesn't mean that I need to do all, you need to do all of the work. It's about plan, do, review, isn't it? And so the way I do it now is there's a very clear plan, a very clear strategic plan. It's written out a year in advance. Well, it's actually written out 5 years in advance. And then we know all the KPIs, all the deliverables that need to be delivered. And so that's in a massive long list, if you want to call it that. And then we know that they need to be delivered in a 12-month period. And so they're simply picked. It's a bit like fruit from a tree. They're picked and placed into people's action lists. They're given it at the beginning of every month. This is what you're delivering this month. There's a review at the end of the month. And it's very clear to see who is delivering and who's not delivering. And then there's a certain level of probation. And if you're not delivering, it's impossible to work together because this is what the business requires. And if you are delivering, then you're an absolute joy and a blessing. And it is exciting to work with people. You know, when 2 + 2 = 7, and you're saying, oh, I thought you were going to do 4, but you did 7 in whatever the effort was or whatever the thinking was. That's a pleasure. But I no longer am the one picking up the socks, doing the sweeping. I'm not the janitor of the business. I'm the leader of the business. And that is a very significant mindset shift, which I think comes back to what you said about the Gabor Maté, isn't it? I've got the book upstairs.
Yeah.
About not being a people pleaser and not trying to sort of pick up broken birds. You know, you've got a very warm heart, James. I know, because I've known you for years. So I can imagine sometimes you look at someone with your entrepreneurial optimism and think, oh, come on, just a little bit more. But actually, it's about looking at reality and saying, here's the reality, here's the standard. Did you hit it? If not, here's the plan to get you there. If not, we're an A-lister company. And you'll only get that dream if you continue to run an A-lister company, really.
Yeah.
Yes. And the work doesn't need to be done by you, which I think is fascinating. I always thought it did, being a hardworking person, I always thought it did. But no, absolutely not. No, let's absolutely go for health first. And then, and I do think those two things are quite correlated. I'm fascinated now I'm back that we're much more profitable and I've altered my way of being within the business.
Sure. Look, Susannah, I mean, you could talk for hours, but I've got 2 last questions because I do need to be out of this studio or this room. So one of the questions is, look, we've been in business a while now and we've had that whole hustle mentality. We've got to work harder. I've got to work harder. Now, what is one bit of advice you'd give to somebody who's listening in and they're fairly new in their business, or they're there and they think they're not working hard enough, or they're working all the hours God's sending, they're hustling away. What is one bit of advice you'd give them for someone who's gone through, starting a business on your kitchen table, drinking cups of tea, as I remember?
Yes.
All the way through to where you are now, where you're completely hands off. But what is that one piece of advice you'd give that one person?
Probably 2 bits, if you don't mind me slipping in a second one. The first is to get around people who are way ahead of you that have done it. And so that you're kind of clinging onto their coat, and not clinging on because that's you being a cling on, but you're mentally on their, you're feeling uncomfortable around them because you're like, oh my gosh, I know nothing. But you're kind of holding onto their coattails and they're accelerating whoosh up the escalator. Because exactly what you said about being in Dubai, when you're looking at these number plates going, well, if he can do it, I can do it. And so it expands your mindset of what is possible, particularly from when somebody's come from a day job, where I walked past something today and I went and got my lovely fruit, right? So it was can you manage our shop 24,000 a year? If you've been on a kind of salary like that, your mindset is going to be kind of clamped into that kind of salary. And I just thought, gosh, that surely should be a month, shouldn't it? But of course it isn't. But that, my mindset is like, well, huh? And so you want to be around people that are, whose mindsets are way ahead of you because they've already seen what can be achieved. And therefore they've broken through any barriers, and that of just being around them will assist you mentally, because your mindset is going to hold you back more than your physical ability to work. So that would be the first one. Actually, I'm going to throw 3. In the early days, you are going to have to do a little bit of hustle and grind. You cannot get there by rubbing your ears, kids. So just grind that out for the first. It is true. We only talk about this because we both got major property portfolios, and we can now do significant value add. In the early days, it's shoe leather and sweat equity, and later on it's an intellectual value add, if you like, intelligent value add. And then the final one is review. So we've got plan, do, which we entrepreneurs adore doing. Review, what went well, what went badly, on every single thing. What went well, what went badly, what can we improve? Because that's about improving your efficiency. So after today, Ian and I will sit down. In fact, we've got it later on. What went well, what went badly, what can we improve? On today's podcast, for example.
Oh, right. Okay.
Everything.
Nice.
When you buy a house, what went well, what went badly, what can we improve? If you do a JV with somebody, with that JV partner, and they will not be slow in telling you what you could improve on, because they can see it, what went well, what went badly, what can we improve? Yeah. So review every single thing. So constantly seek that 1% improved efficiency all the time. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then go chill out in Bali.
Yeah, good answer. My next question, it's a little bit morbid, but look, when it's all said and done, we're all going to die at some point.
Not yet, please, not yet.
Yeah, hopefully you've got long lives. When it's all said and done, if you could be a fly on the wall at your funeral, what is it that you want people to say about you? Or what do you hope they're saying about you?
I loved her and she loved me. And that, remember, I got a cancer diagnosis, which took 3.5 weeks when I was still within the NHS system to identify whether it was terminal or not. And then that was 21st of January, 3.5 weeks is middle of February. Went in to start the treatment plan on the 1st of March. They went, we've seen hotspots on your liver, which would have been terminal, by the way. I got so lucky they were cysts, not hotspots, but that was looking like I was terminal. So I've already been through a kind of a dress rehearsal of that. And the number one thing when my daughter and I came out of that first year of cancer, and we're going to take about 3.5 weeks to tell you whether it's terminal or not, because that's the time frame of our system. We didn't even get home, and we pulled together a WhatsApp group, and it was so fascinating and strengthening to see my inner circle of people I loved and who loved me. And it's black and white when you're facing what could be terminal diagnosis. So that's the most solid thing. She loved me and I loved her. Yes.
Good answer. Really good answer. Susannah, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure, as always.
We need to do this again.
Absolutely. I think next time it's got to be in person. I'm actually back in 100%. I'm back in the UK for I'm back actually next week for a week or so. But next time you're traveling and you're passing through here, we'll have to jump on and do another podcast. But
I would love to do that, because I'm looking at going out to Bali for a few months, so I can always do a layover and spend some time in Dubai and then jump over. That would be
let's do it. Let's do it. Absolutely. Yeah. But thanks again.
Thank you. And I'm so glad to see things going so nicely for you.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Okay, we'll cut it there. Thank you, Susannah, again. I'm going to have to rush because I've got to be out of this damn room. But
so good to see you, and so good to hear that family are good and your health is good. And
I appreciate that. I really appreciate that. It's been a rocky ride, but I think it's been a rocky ride for us both. But it's nice to be in a position where we're now kind of, things are good.
Yeah. It's not fair about your mum, is it? It's just stinky not fair.
Yeah. It's kind of like, especially when I spoke to Anthony as well, he said there would have been things you could have done, but I knew no better. I trusted what was there, what the system is. And knowing what I know now, there's no way in hell I would go with what any doctor says. I'd be consulting left, right and centre. But
to be fair, the movements forward in Geo now compared to even at that time, which was 4 years ago?
Nearly 4 years ago, yeah.
Like did you see the Australian melanoma doctor, the guy that got the Nobel Prize? He's got a GO, and they got approval to use his same treatment that they use for melanoma, in Australia. I mean, these are like happening now. They weren't happening 4 years ago.
Yeah.
You know,
it's the same, isn't it?
Oh, it thinks beyond belief. Yes, yes, it does. But the one thing, and we need to communicate. The one thing I would ask you to do is get all your tests done. Do you get your MRIs and get your?
I do have bloods done every 6 months.
You get your genome tested, because I have a faulty gene, which is why things happened.
Okay, what's that? A genome test, is it?
A genome test. It cost me like £300 plus £200 for the doctor, so nothing really.
Okay.
And it tests your entire genome for any faulty genes.
Okay.
And then I would do full body MRIs at least every 5 years, including brain. Not because I'm worried about any impact of what happened to your mum to impact on you. It's just that I've seen a lot, obviously, that you don't necessarily put through a podcast. And if you catch something early, James, it's just like, okay, I'm going to have a quick op. If you catch it late. So the reason I'm still alive is, like you, I didn't trust the doctors. I'm not going to publicize that too much. But I fucking paid for everything. And that's why we caught 2 cancers early. Yeah. Otherwise I'd be dead. And if I'd stayed with the NHS, I would 100% be dead now. So, just get tested, but not in a kind of like freaked out emergency way. Just in a, this is like paying a maid to sweep my house. I'm just sweeping my health.
I mean, these things are on my doorstep here in Dubai. A full MRI test. I could go and have one now.
Yeah. Full MRI, colonoscopy, fit tests, a genome test, a brain to toe MRI, just the whole thing. Do that every 5 years. Do your colonoscopy once a year, do your endoscopy, do your fit tests, do your full bloods, and then your genome testing. And then the other thing is you can get blood markers. I forget what the test is called now. It's about £1,000 in America, and they identify a number of tumour markers. And if they're a bit elevated, they're like, well, let's just have a look.
Okay.
So
that's a blood markers test, yeah?
Yes, it would cost you a couple of thousand quids, but in the grand scheme of life, just keep you and your family blood test cancer NHS. It's in America already. Let me just, what is it called? Gallieri. That's right. So in America, you just buy that for $1,000. They're trying it out in the NHS at the moment. Now, it does give some false positives sometimes, but
yeah, of course. Yeah. Okay. Love talking to you. I'll speak to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye. Bye. Bye-bye. Bye.